So I'm a general contractor and owner of an ADU building company. This year we're doing about 3.5 million. Last year we did 1 million. And my question is, how do I properly pay / set up an outside sales rep? So I've been doing all my sales up until this point. Some quick context, I have been given advice from someone I really respect that says that outside sales should only be paid a commission when they both generate and close the deal. On the other hand, I'm thinking if the sales team is getting some of the leads that we generate, then the business would make more money. And when I've interviewed a few potential salespeople, they all seem pretty surprised when I explained that, they would need to generate their own sales. So I'm just trying to navigate correctly here.
You want them to generate their own leads or their own sales?
From what I understood, the advice I've been given is that they would do both. They would generate it and close the deal as outside sales, and that's how they would earn their commission.
So where do they get their leads?
Well, if
did you say? Case, wait a minute. What kind of construction did you say this is?
Yeah, so it's an ADU construction, which is it's like a granny flat in the backyard. So it's a mini home up to 1,200 square feet. And okay. Yeah, you could build it in your backyard. It's a secondary home essentially. Now, if I was a salesman trying to generate my own leads, I'd be creating networks with local engineers, architects, people that maybe real estate agents. That's where I would go. That's all in theory. I'm really just trying to figure what you.
Where did you get your leads to get to 3.5 million?
Yeah, so I've advertised. I just learned and some advertising on Google and Facebook, and that's where I generate all my leads, and then a little bit of word of mouth.
But you don't have time to work them all anymore.
It's getting more difficult. It's
you need to be running the business instead of being the sales guy.
I agree, 100%. Yeah.
Well, that involves that someone else has to take over the leads that you were using.
Yes.
And you weren't generating them. You were getting them off of Facebook.
Yeah, I would create the ad creative and set the ad budget and, got this far with that. But yeah, definitely. Everything, I shouldn't be doing that. I know that for sure in the long run.
In a retail B2C setting, you're selling direct to the consumer. You're not selling. Yeah. You're not selling to another business. It would be. I like the advice. It would be really nice, but if they could generate their own leads and then close their own leads, that's a much harder hire.
Right. I've come to realize that.
To find someone that can do both of those things.
Right.
It's a much easier hire if you say, here are the leads, you need to go close them. And your marketing plan generates the leads. And whether you're doing paid social or word buys, or whether you're doing whether it's stuff off of the internet, or whether you've got some other methodology, you're running ads in magazines and people are calling in, or I don't know what it is. You're doing a direct mailer. I saw somebody the other day and made some money with direct mail. I didn't even know that existed anymore hardly. But this guy claimed he was doing $2 million a year off of it. So, but I don't know what it is. But I think you've got to. You're going to have a much more effective sales force, a higher volume production if you generate the leads. Because here's the thing, you can put together a marketing campaign that lead generates. They can't.
Yes, true.
And so the volume of leads that you could create would be like, let's just say 100, and maybe they generated 10 in the same period of time. They might have a higher close ratio on those 10 than they do on your 100 percentage-wise, but total numbers would be up if you're generating the leads. Now, there was part of the way you phrased this at the beginning with the advice that I didn't hear generating the leads. I heard that they took the lead, sold it, and closed it, and until it was completed, they didn't get paid. That
Yeah,
part I would do.
yeah. Uh-huh.
That part I would do. I would not pay them on a contract that you have received no money on.
Sure.
I would only pay them when you get money.
Right. Yeah, I suppose if I were to rephrase it in a little bit or a little bit differently, I'm almost looking for the green light to give salespeople leads because that's the way I understood it should work.
I think in a B2C relationship, that's more efficient personally. I don't think there's a wrong way or a right way. It's just a matter of which one works, right? I think if you got 10 guys out there just knocking doors, so to speak, they're not going to generate the same volume as if you got 10 guys closing massive numbers of leads that you send them.
Yeah, that's a much harder way to go.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I think you, but and so you do some campaign marketing that is lead magnets and generates leads, and you know, you know, I'd be okay with having two commission structures: one when you close our leads, and one when you go talk to the engineers and they start giving you leads, and you go get your own leads, and I'll pay you more on those than I do on the ones I spoon feed you.
That's actually, I wanted to quickly ask about that if we have a second or two.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a proper percentage, what do
There's not
think?
one. There's not a set percentage. It varies industry. It depends on your margins. I mean, obviously, you can't give up your entire margin in sales commissions. And you've got cost of goods sold. You've got hard costs. You've got cost of this campaign now that they didn't do the work. You had to pay for this marketing that brings them the leads in. And so that they're going to get a lower percentage on all of that for that reason, because I got to cover my costs. And you're one of my costs. I don't know what your margins are and all that. You've got to figure that out. Here's the thing I would do. I would put in place a commission structure that if you ever had a salesperson that made $500,000 income that year, that you made so much money as a result of that it makes you really glad to pay him $500K.
Agreed. I mean, that'd be nice.
Yeah, it's a happy comp plan. You're happy, they're happy. But I have done them a couple of times where they started making a bunch of money and I had structured it wrong, and I wasn't wanting, it got to the point I didn't want them to sell more because I was like losing 20 cents a watermelon because I'd put the thing together wrong. And you don't want to get a bigger truck when you're losing 20 cents a watermelon. So that's the thing. So you got to be real careful with that. And I think let me tell you what else I would do on comp plans. I always do it here now because I have done it wrong a couple of times. This is how we're going to start the comp plan. If when we get into this a year or two, I'm not going to change the comp plan just because I'm greedy, but I might change it where you make more as I look at it further. And I might change it where you make less because you might end up making more than me. And I own this place, and that's not going to happen. So I got to have a little flexibility to look at this thing when we get further into it, because there may be some things I didn't foresee that are in this, and I'll talk to you about it, but I'm not going to rip you off. But I can promise you after a year, we are going to revisit these percentages, and we might have to change them. But we're going to start it off this way, and I'll never change the percentage just because I think you're making too much money. That's not going to be the reason. But we are going to have something that's equitable for both you and me. And if it's not doing that, you're not making enough, I'm going to change it where you make more. Or I'm not making enough, we're going to change it where I make more. That's pretty well, and I'm going to lay that out ahead of time. That way they don't go, well, as soon as I started making money, they ripped me off. You don't want that one, okay? And I did do that a couple times. I didn't rip them off, but that's how they felt because I didn't set the table properly initially on the way in. That's the thing. So good question, James. I think you're going to do really well. Feels really, really good.